The proposed recent changes to dangerous dogs legislation come after a hard-fought campaign by the union stemming back to 2008. I've come to Westminster to meet with the union's head campaigner Dave Joyce and political supporter MP Hugh Iranka-Davis to talk about what the changes mean for you. Dave, can you tell us where we are now? What is the law at the moment and what are the proposed changes?
We've made great progress through our campaign by getting the dangerous dogs legislation changed in Scotland and getting it changed in Northern Ireland. So it leaves us with England and Wales. We've been making great progress with the Welsh Government, and we've already secured the cross-party support of all the political parties in Wales. So we're very confident that we will see new legislation in Wales before the end of the year. So that leaves us with Westminster. And of course we've been promised on several occasions, going right back to 2010 when I got a personal assurance from David Cameron that they would change the legislation, and we've had several promises and announcements since then. But most recently, at the beginning of February, the DEFRA Minister announced that the government would be changing the legislation in key areas, and the most important objective of our campaign is to get the legislation to apply everywhere, including private property, because 70% of the attacks on postal workers and telecom workers take place on private property, where currently, of course, owners are immune from any criminal prosecutions. The second announcement is to introduce compulsory microchipping, and of course we support that. And there are changes proposed in relation to police seizure rules of dangerous dogs as well. It doesn't quite go as far as we want, because we've achieved the introduction of dog control notices in Scotland and in Northern Ireland and in Wales, but that is absent from the Westminster proposals. So our campaign continues to get the inclusion of dog control notices as well, which is a proactive preventative measure up front to try to avoid attacks in the first place. That's the current position.
So one of your big MP supporters is standing next to you, Hugh. How is this an important issue for you? Why have you put your weight behind this campaign?
Well, the reason it's so important is firstly because of the thousands of attacks that we still have, not only on postal workers but also on other people who visit homes, social workers, care workers, mental health nurses. But if you add on to that the costs of kennelling for local authorities through stray dogs, if you add on to that the cost of kennelling for the Metropolitan Police or the Greater Manchester Police, into the millions of pounds, this is actually a real social and economic disaster, as well as the tragedies inflicted by injuries and fatalities on postal workers and others. Now, we've got a tremendous coalition. CWU's Bite Back campaign has been instrumental in pushing this forward. They've worked very constructively and energetically with the government and on the government. But we've got to remember that the police are behind this, the Royal College of Nurses are behind this, the Veterinaries Association, the Dogs Trust, the RSPCA, everybody is behind this. So I think the big push now is, and that's what we've been trying to do in recent debates, is not just have the warm words from government and good announcements, but often re-announcements that we've seen 2 or 3 years ago. Put it into place. We need a parliamentary timescale. The consultation on this closed on the 1st of June 2010. So we're frustrated at the delay there has been, but I'm glad that in debates here in Westminster, with the support of the CWU and others, we've managed to force the government's hand and get them to commit to a timetable in the next parliamentary session. And I've got to say that's one thing I agree strongly with Dave on. It's a bit of a disappointment that the government haven't moved on dog control notices, which is part of that early intervention, so that if you see a dog or an owner that is not controlling their dog properly, that neighbours are raising regularly with the local authority or environmental health services, or that the postal workers who visit in day by day go, well, there's a problem. Then somebody can step in and say, you're going to have to muzzle that dog, you're going to have to keep that under control, or we're going to take it away.
It's been a long and hard-fought campaign. Let's take a look back at the last 5 years. Every year, attacks from dogs leave thousands of workers with injuries, some so severe, as we'll see, that workers are unable to return to work. Yet those attacked on private property find themselves ineligible for any compensation. Shankar Guha catches up with the campaign to reform the Dangerous Dogs Act.
Alan, can you tell me exactly what happened on the day of the attack?
This leg has got some nerve and some muscle damage to it now, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and this is after a skin graft, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a skin graft.
There is no recourse in law to protect our people, and we want that changed, along with a number of other faults within that legislation.
18 months ago, David Cameron himself, in writing to myself, gave us an assurance that he would change the law. We want him to deliver on those assurances so that we'll be protected right across the UK against those irresponsible owners who allow their dogs to attack people, and at the moment can do so with complete impunity.
One of the key supporters of the Bite Back campaign was Battersea Dogs Home. What do they think of the extension to dangerous dogs laws?
So I'm Rob Jervis-Gibbons, I'm the Public Affairs Manager at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. We're very pleased to support the CWU Bite Back campaign here at Battersea. We believe that public workers who have to go into private property as part of their role and as part of their job, which they have no choice but to do that, should be protected on private property. We've been campaigning with the CWU for quite some time now to get the legislation extended to private property, and we totally support the aims of the Bite Back campaign, which has been running since 2008. And just including with the Bite Back campaign aims is a range of other responsible ownership measures like microchipping, which we fully support. Responsible ownership is important, obviously, and particularly the traceability of dogs back to an owner, particularly if there's any problems with those dogs. You might be involved in perhaps dog incidents in the community, and that's about dog control and proper responsible ownership. Battersea very much welcomes the fact that the government has decided that all dogs must be microchipped by 2016. 33% of the dogs that come into Battersea are microchipped, but a third of those have the wrong details attached. And we very much welcome the government's announcement for compulsory microchipping, because it would mean that dog owners have to be more accountable for their dog's actions, and there'd be more traceability if they were unfortunately to get involved in dog attacks. We're offering free microchipping here at all of our 3 centres, and that's all somebody has to do is to book an appointment really, and then they can have their dog microchipped for free. We see it as a very important tool for responsible ownership, and 45% of the dogs that come into Battersea each year are stray dogs, so we got more chance of actually reuniting those dogs with their owners.
Now, this is a film that's going to be watched by postal workers mainly. You've talked about social workers and nurses, but speaking directly to postmen and women now, what would you say to them in the intervening months before finally these changes come in? We hope that they do. I'm sure that they understand how to protect themselves, etc. But what really would you be saying in those last few months to hang on to the procedures that they're following, and how things can change?
Well, from a parliamentary point of view, I'd say to CWU members up and down the country, don't give up yet. It's not over. I'm very optimistic now. We've moved forward. We've got a timetable promised as well as the actions promised. But we've got to keep the pressure on. Otherwise, we've seen governments backslip on this sort of issue before. But for the first time, thanks to the CWU, thanks to the Bite Back campaign, thanks to the tens of thousands of CWU members, we've got the government going in the right direction. Let's get them to the finishing post.
Yeah, following on from that, the first message I'd like to send out to all our representatives and all our members right across the UK is to contact your MP, ask them simply to sign early donation number 822, and our representatives out in the field can rally the members to actually get that done. Moving on from that, of course, we have many differences with the employers. But of course, on the Bite Back campaign, I'm pleased to say that Royal Mail Group and British Telecom have both backed the Bite Back campaign very solidly. And Royal Mail Group in particular have put their money where their mouth is, and of course they commissioned a High Court judge to undertake an inquiry last year, and it also published 2 very, very important recommendations which the Royal Mail Group board have adopted. And the first one was that they were going to, as an organisation, take a far, far more robust and firm position in relation to irresponsible owners allowing their dogs to menace and to bite our members. And so the policy of the business now has been toughened up, and we will more readily suspend deliveries to addresses where there is a potential for an attack on our members. That's the first thing that's been adopted by the board. And the second thing that the board has adopted is that they have adopted a policy that they will, where the police and local authorities fail to prosecute, they will in future privately prosecute irresponsible owners using civil litigation against those irresponsible owners. So a very, very firmed up and toughened position taken by Royal Mail Group in support of the Bite Back campaign and what the CWU is trying to achieve. So what the work we're doing with Royal Mail is obviously very important, and it's going to be important that we, and I'm in discussions with Royal Mail currently to make sure that we discharge those commitments given in the outcome from the Langley inquiry.
So, Dave Joyce, Hugh Ranker-Davis, thank you so much for talking to us about this issue, and let's hope we get that in the timetable.
Thank you.
Thanks.